course. As you can see out here, on the first day, we'll be just discussing the introduction to Selenium, that what is Selenium and how it is implemented with C#. Right, so these are all the topics that you can just have a look at it. All right, and on the second day we'll be moving towards the concept of OOPS, that is the basics of the programming concepts, that is the what is an object, static, non-static, constructor, interfaces, how they are used in Selenium as well. Right, and then after that we will be moving towards the Selenium. Alright, so you can just have a look at this. This is the checklist that is all the topics that we will be actually covering up in our course. Alright, and then after discussing the basics of the Selenium, like how it is being done in the C#, after that we will be taking up a framework as well, that is either a page object model or a data driven framework or the hybrid framework. Accordingly, like we will be taking up one framework also in the end. That is after the, you can just have a look, that is on the day 14, on the day 15th day, we'll be starting up with our framework. Okay, and then we'll be also covering up with the NUnit, like the testing framework which is used in Selenium in C#. Right, similar to the test-ng and the JUnit in Java, we have NUnit in C#, and then we'll also see how to handle the Excel file as well in order to read and write the data, how it can be done with C#. That also will be covered. All right, and then these are all the topics, the Selenium, which we will be actually covering up in our Selenium course. How to handle the drop-down, the pop-up handling. Okay, the web tables, frame, actions class, everything will be taught up in the course. Okay, right, and then before actually moving towards the course, so I have prepared few of the FAQs, that is the questions which people generally ask, that what all will be taught in the course. So we will be covering up everything. As you can see out here, these are the course details that we have just seen out here. Alright, so these are all the topics. Okay, and then will I get access to the videos? Yes, you will surely get access to the videos as well. I am recording the session and you will get the videos also. Alright, so do you record current sessions? Yes, I do record the current sessions as well. And then the most important question, is C# required if I don't know programming? Well, yes, I would say yes. You should. Yeah, I am coming towards that only. Yes, so C# is required in order to learn Selenium as well. If you don't know the basics of programming language, then you cannot just learn Selenium. Alright, and if you know the concepts of programming language, the basic concepts, object, class, constructor and all, everything, then you can work with the Selenium, because in C# only the syntax would differ, right? Only the syntax would be differing up and nothing else. So if you know the concepts, you can easily work with C# as well. And then yes, I will be telling you the syntax also that will be used in C#, that is there in C#. So we will be covering up Selenium and C# simultaneously. Alright, and then if you need any help in your project, yes, we will be helping you out. You can just Skype us, or we have a forum as well. You can just post your questions on the forum. We will be replying you. We have a team of members out here. Alright, so what all do you cover? So these are the course details that we have just discussed, and the duration would be around 25 to 30 hours. That is, it would take around 1 to 1.5 months if you don't take any leaves and all, right? And then could you also provide some kind of live project? Yes, we actually, when we will be discussing the frameworks, we will be actually taking up the live website only. Alright, so that you can just go through, you can just do with the framework that we will be covering up in our course at the end. Alright, so any more questions regarding the course, the topics, anything anyone wants to ask before I start with my course? Any one of you regarding the course details? Yes. Yes, I will be like, we will be actually making our project in Visual Studio also only. Like Eclipse, for Java you use Eclipse, but for C# we use Visual Studio. So I'll be telling you, I'll be like, we will be working on the Visual Studio only. We'll not be working on the Eclipse. Right, since yeah, okay. And then yes, Padma, you were asking, yeah. So as you can see out here, there are only 24 days, but as we will be discussing, so it's not like that it will be covering up only in the 24 days. It can exceed to 25 days to 30 days if you like. And then I told you, if you don't take any leaves, then we will be actually covering, like we can cover in the 25 to 30 days, we can cover up our goals. Okay, and it's not like that this one topic will take only, these topics will be covered in one day only. It can exceed to the other day as well. Okay, it's not like that. So it's just an estimate that we will be covering up in the 24 days that I have just written in the checklist. Yes, okay. And then anyone else? Okay, so we'll then start with the class. No more questions. Okay, so coming towards the introduction, like first of all, we'll just discuss First of all, I'll just talk about the brief history of Selenium, that is like how it evolved and where it is going right now. We'll just discuss that first. Alright, so just a minute. Okay, so now like what is the history of Selenium? So as we will see, like if we talk about the history of Selenium, there are actually three components that are there in Selenium. Three components, that is we have there is one RC, then there is IDE. Okay, and then there is another component, that is the grid. So what are these components? So like starting with the IDE. Now what is an IDE? IDE, it only works on the Mozilla browser. Okay, it is now IDE is still used. We are talking about IDE, right? We're not talking about the first component. I'm talking about IDE. It is still used and it only works on the Firefox browser. It only works on the Mozilla browser. Alright, and then secondly, it is a record and run tool. It is a record and run tool. Now every automation tool has record and run features which looks good, but it is not practical because dynamic things you cannot just record and run. Right? For example, if you take the example of the Yahoo website. Now every day the contents of the Yahoo keeps on changing, or you take the example of any news website or the sports website, right? So you can see that every day now the websites are dynamic, so you cannot just record and run everything. Alright, so that is what is the record and run concept. Okay, and then the next is you cannot generate reports with IDE. The reports cannot be generated with IDE. Okay, but this IDE is a very simple tool. It's a very easy tool to understand. Okay, it will help you automate your test cases. Like if you have only 5 to 10 test cases, then you can easily work with the IDE. But if you have 1,000 test cases, then you cannot just work with the IDE. For that, we have an alternative as well. We have another component that I'll just tell you in few more minutes. Okay, so that is what is IDE. Okay, so this is IDE, and then we have RC. Now RC, it can work on multiple browsers. It can work on multiple browsers, that is the Chrome, Firefox, Opera, IE. It can work on all the browsers. Moreover, HTML and the XSLT reports, both the reports are generated. All the reports are generated with RC. But for RC, you need to have the concept, you need to learn the programming language, that is C Sharp, Java, Ruby, Python, Perl. You must have the knowledge of the programming language if you want to work with RC. Okay, so that was a challenge for the testers as well, and still a challenge, since you must have the knowledge of the programming language if you want to work with the RC. Okay, but like as I told you that RC is not much used these days. IDE is still used, and then we have more components. So now why RC is not used? There are some drawbacks in RC which like because of which we don't use RC. For example, like it used to be there used to be a RC server. There used to be a RC server which used to start from the command prompt. So many a time server never used to start, or you have to like shut down, and then you need to open your RC server and then need to work with it. Alright, so many a times like people were able to work with the RC. So because of the RC server, we are not using RC these days. And there are a lot more drawbacks as well, right? So because of which we are not using RC. So we'll not go into depth with RC since it's not much used these days. Alright, so this is what is RC, and then we have the grid. Now what is a grid? Now with grid, it helps in the parallel execution of your test cases. Parallel execution of your test cases. With grid, what you do is that there is a central hub, and to that central hub you will be connecting multiple nodes to it, and then you will be like in your framework you will be having multiple test cases, right? So you can just give your test cases to the multiple nodes which are connected to a central hub, and then if you want to execute them parallelly at the same time, then with the help of the grid we will be actually making our framework. You can just execute them parallelly. Okay, so what happens is that, now what is the advantage of the grid? That is it will save your time, since many test cases will be executing parallelly at the same time. Okay, so this is what is grid. And then right now we have just discussed the drawbacks of the RC. So in order to avoid that, there came another component which is known as the web driver. Okay, so with the web driver you can do same things as the RC, that is web driver. It also works on the multiple browsers. Right? And moreover, reports are also generated in the web driver. You can generate reports also, right? And then many more features are there which we will be actually covering up in our course. So in our course we will be actually discussing the web driver only. Alright? Okay, and then our IDE is still there. IDE is still the same. Okay, that is, these are all the these are all the things that are there in IDE, and IDE is still the same only. RC has been changed to web driver, and IDE is still there. And then the grid has been changed to version has been changed, that is grid 2. Okay, which supports web driver as well. Okay, so our major focus will be discussing the web driver only. I will be taking up what basically we will be actually covering up in our course is we will be discussing the web driver. Then yes, I will be covering up the C# topics as well. We'll be discussing the concepts of the C# as well. Alright, and then we will be doing the frameworks also. Okay, and then yes, we have the grid implementation also, and then we'll be configuring our project through Jenkins also. Jenkins is also covered in our course. Alright, so and many more Selenium topics. Then you can just have a look at this checklist that we have just discussed right now. Alright, so this was about the history of the Selenium that we have just discussed right now. So anything anyone wants to ask that that we have discussed just right now? From grid also can we generate the reports after the parallel execution? Like grid, what is a grid? Like as I told you that with the help of the grid, we will be executing the test cases parallelly, right? And then I didn't actually get your question. Like from the grid, you actually execute your test cases parallelly. Right, and then like when we will be actually discussing our reports, so we will be generating the extent reports and the accessibility reports also I'll be covering up. So the reports generation can be done from the command prompt also and from the C# code also that we will be actually discussing when we will discussing the frameworks. Yes, WebDriver generates the reports. So grid will generate the reports. You can say yes. We can say yes, yeah, we will be actually generating the reports also. There is not much difference between grid and grid 2. Like as I told you that in grid 2 we have the WebDriver as well. In the previous version, WebDriver was not supported with grid. Yes, I told you we will be covering up, we will be discussing the extent reports. I'll be telling you the extent reports also. Okay. And Padma, are you alright? Okay. And IDE is same? Yes, IDE is same. Nothing has changed with IDE. These are only the topics that are there with IDE, and IDE is still the same. Now Selenium. Yes, Selenium has 3 components: IDE, WebDriver, and grid. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Like because of the drawbacks and IRC, we have switched to the WebDriver. Yes, okay, no problem. All right. Yes, anyone else with any question? Okay, so we'll just move forward. All right, so this was about the history of Selenium, and then okay, so now like how to start with. Now the first important thing that I need to ask everyone is, will you do you know the concepts of programming, like the basic concepts? As you can say, the if statement, or the for loops, the loops, or you can say the functions, what is a function and how they are being done. So I'm just like, what is a class, what is an object. So these topics I will be discussing also in my course. Like if I just want to know if you know these topics, the basics of the programming. Yes. Now I assume that everybody knows these topics. All right. Okay. So because according to that only I'll be starting up with my course. Because I cannot directly start. Okay, no problem. You know the concepts, right? The functions, the if statements, the for loops, you know these concepts. So like as you can see out here, we will be taking the oops concepts as well in the 2 classes, so that time you'll get more clear with it. Okay, because I cannot directly start with the basics of the programming, what is an if statement, how it is being done, the loops, the for loops, the while loop. I cannot start with it in our course. Okay, so that would take much time then. Okay, now starting with the concepts of the oops, because people generally go wrong over here, right? So if you want to learn Selenium, you should know the concepts of the oops as well. Now why is there a need to learn oops? It is because if you go to the official website of the Selenium, that is seleniumhq.org. Out here, I'll just go to my documentation, the API docs of my C#, right? So out here you can just go to the documentation. So these are the API docs, like the API docs which are there, which are covered with C#. So as you can see out here, if you look into this documentation, you can see that these are all the topics that are there in the documentation, like the class, the exceptions, what are the exceptions, interfaces, what are the interfaces. We have several kind of interfaces out here listed in this documentation, right? So these are all the topics that are there. Now if you don't know the concepts of these oops, like what is an interface, what is an class, what is an object, enumeration, if you don't know, then you cannot just work with the Selenium. Right. Okay, so because of that only, like I am focusing on the concepts of the oops, because it is required in order to learn Selenium. You must have the basics, you must have the knowledge of the basics of the oops concepts in order to learn Selenium. Right? So these, if you want, like if you just look at the documentation also, these are all, like these are covered in the Selenium topics as well. Okay, so because of that only, we'll be taking up with the oops concepts, since it is entirely an oops architecture, the Selenium. Alright, so that was one thing, and now coming towards the C#. Okay, so like as somebody asked also, that we will be now, in order to work with C#, we'll be actually writing our code in Visual Studio. We'll not be working with the Eclipse. Like for the Java you use Eclipse, but for C# we'll be using the Visual Studio software, right? And then, like, do I need to tell how to install Visual Studio, or you can install it from Google? Like you can just Google the Visual Studio software and you can just download it from there. Okay, and I have it already downloaded on my system. I'll just show you. You can just download the Visual Studio from the Microsoft website. Okay, so this is your Visual Studio, the first page that will come up when you open your Visual Studio. Alright, so I have installed 2013 and 2015 as well on my system. So this is the 2015. Yeah, 2015 would also be okay. Yes. Okay, so I have it both, like. Okay, just a minute. Just hold on. Right. Enterprise version will be enough? Yes, no problem. You can install it. Okay. You have community version. No, like the versions doesn't matter actually. You can install any one of them. It will not matter. Alright, okay, so this is the Visual Studio, and like everyone has installed Visual Studio on their system, or some of you have to install. Okay. Alright. Okay. So I assume everybody has installed Visual Studio. Alright. Okay. Okay, so this is your Visual Studio, and now what we will be doing is that, like, say suppose I'll create a new project in my Visual Studio, right? So you can just create a new project from like out here you have new project icon, new project link over here, or you can create a new project from the file menu as well. File, new project. Okay, right. So this is the new project dialog box that appears out here before you. So now as you can see out here under the Visual Studio, now these are all the projects that you can create in your system. That is, if you want to create a console application or a Windows form application or a web application, class library project. So these are all the options that you can create according to your requirement. Right, there are multiple options available in Visual Studio, the like what type of a project you want to create. So according to your requirement you can just create any one of them, and basically like we don't actually need all these projects, we don't actually create all these projects. We will be actually using the console application, or you can say the class library project. We'll be actually like console application and the class library project are only much used in the frameworks in your applications. And then we'll be creating these projects only, the console and the class library project. And then I'll be telling you what is the difference between both these projects also. We'll just discuss them right now. Alright, so say suppose firstly I'll create a console application project in my Visual Studio, right? And then say I create the project as day 1, okay, and I create it. Alright, so this is your day 1 project, as you can see out here, right? And then this is this is the Solution Explorer window that you can see out here, which will actually list your project, right? So all your projects will be actually listed in this Solution Explorer window. Okay, so you can see that this is the name of your project, day 1, and under this project we have actually 4 files with us. So these 4 files are created by default when you create any console application project. And what are these files? I'll just discuss that right now. Okay, and then this is your program.cs class file, as you can see out here, which contains the main method. Okay, the class is the program and it contains the main method, since the execution of your code starts with the main method only. You must be knowing that, everybody must be knowing that, right? The execution actually starts from the main method. So this console application actually contains this main method where we will be actually writing our code in order to perform anything. Okay, and then what are these? What is a namespace? What is a class? What is static? What is void? Don't worry, we will be discussing everything in our course. Okay, right. Alright, so now this is the day 1 project, and it contains, like as I told you, it contains 4 files. The first folder is the properties folder, and under that we have a class, assemblyinfo.cs class file. So if you open this class file, you can just see that you can just say that it is just the configuration about the Visual Studio. You need not to we need not to do anything with this assemblyinfo.cs class file, just the configuration about the Visual Studio. That is it's being discussed, the assembly version, the file version, and nothing much we need to discuss with this class file, assembly info. We don't use it actually. Okay, and then the second one is the references folder. Now what is this references folder? Under this folder you can see that we have multiple class file. Now what are these? What is this references folder? I'll come to this folder later on. Let's first discuss the rest 2 folders. Okay, and then we have this configuration file. So this app.config file, similar to the resource, similar to the property properties file in Java, you have this configuration file in .NET, in C#. So all our configuration settings will be actually keeping inside this configuration, inside this app.config file, right? So right now, since we have not done anything with our project, I have just created a new project, right? So this configuration file, it only contains the version and the .NET framework, right? The .NET framework is 4.5. The version of this .NET framework is 4.5. It does not contain right now anything inside this. Okay, but later on, when we will be actually going towards our framework, when we'll be actually working with our framework, I'll be keeping all my configuration settings in my config file only. So like rather than hard coding the values in your framework, we'll be actually reading all the values from this configuration file. So in that way, the configuration file will be used, and it is much important as well. Okay, so this is the configuration file, and then we have this program.cs, the class file, which contains the main method out here. Okay, so alright, so we have this program.cs class file which contains the main method. Now out here, if you want to, say suppose, declare any variable, say if I have to declare a variable, say I declare any integer variable is equal to 11. So this is how like you declare any variable in C#. Just the data type, int is the data type, and the variable name is a, and I have like initialized the value to 11 for it, right? And similarly, if you want to initialize any string variable, then for that we have string, the data type is string, and then you declare, you give any value to it. Say hello. Okay, and then if you want to print anything in C#, if you want to print anything, then for that what you say, you like similar to the system.out.println in Java, we have console.writeLine. So if you want to print anything, you simply say console.writeLine and say if I have to print Selenium. Okay, so like console.writeLine is the like if you want to print, and then if you want to run your code, so how do you execute your code? That is out here. You can see this start button over here. Just click on it and your code will be executed. Okay, so alright, so we like the code has executed. Did you see the black window which came? So the black window, it just came and it vanished away immediately, right? Now why it vanished away, why we are not able to see the output? It is because we have to write one more statement out here, that is console.readKey. Now what is this statement? I'll just tell you. Now if you run your code, so now you see that this screen has not disappeared right now. It is still there, and then you can see the output as well on this console output window. So this is what is this console.readKey. So console.readKey, like if you don't write this console.readKey statement, if you don't write, then you cannot see the output of your code. So if you want to see the output, then you have to write this console.readKey. So console.readKey actually freezes the screen till the time you press any key from the keyboard. It just freezes the screen. That is, you are able to see the output on the for the Visual Studio. Right, so this is what is this console.readKey statement. If you want to see the output, so because of that we use console.readKey. Alright, and then you can see that we have Selenium being written in the output. We have printed the Selenium. Okay, and then I assume you know the for loops, the if statement, what is a function and how it is being declared and how do you call a function. I assume you know these topics. Okay, so we will not be actually covering up with these topics. I'll be taking up what is a class, what is an object, what is static, non-static, constructor, interfaces. Okay. Right, so this is what you do with the this is like the basics only. The main was this console.writeLine. If you want to print anything, then you simply write console.writeLine. Okay, and then the shortcut for it is, say if you want to, the shortcut for it, you simply write CW and then press double tab key. Okay, so console.writeLine, the shortcut for it is CW, and you press double tab key in order to write console.writeLine statement. Alright, so this is what it is. Okay, so this is your like the basic only, the basic for the C#. So now when you actually run your code, when I run my code, so the class file will be generated for this code. Now in a project there can be multiple class files. There can be multiple class files. Now when in the practical project there is not one class, but there are multiple classes. There are multiple class files in a single project. Now what developers do is that they put all the types, all the class files in a single file. Wait, I'll just show you. Okay, so like as I told you that in a single project you have multiple class file. You have multiple class file will be generated when you will be actually compiling your code, right? So now what developers do is that they put all these classes in a single file called as the DLL file. For example, now if you look into this references folder, now C# is a collection of the DLL file. Every DLL file it is the collection of the class. Right, so in there are inbuilt classes in C# which we can use out here. For example, so now if you look into this references folder, these are all the DLL files. So by default, these all DLL files come up. These come up by default when you create any project, when you create any console application project. These files, these DLL files, class files will be added up in your project. Right. For example, as I told you that there are many inbuilt classes in C# that we just need to make use of, and then you can just use the functionality of those classes. Say suppose you want to print the current date and time of your system, right? So for that you have the date time class. Okay, you have this date time class, and then if you want to print the current date and time, then I'll just use this now function of the date time class, and then now if I run my code, you just click on this start. So here you see that it prints the current date and time out here. Okay. Right, so what is this class? So now this datetime is an internal class in C# that we are just making use of. Now say suppose, now from where does this datetime class come? Now say suppose if I just comment this using system. So now you see that the errors start coming up in your code. So that means these all classes are coming under this using system namespace. So these are all the namespaces. Now what is a namespace? Namespace is collection of classes. Okay, so in order to write your code, you must include the classes in your project in order to work with your code. So namespace, you just have to include the namespaces in your project. So these are all the namespaces that we are using in our project. And under this system class, we have all these classes, this console and the datetime and many more come up. Okay, and similarly for all the other namespaces also, there are many classes, many functions which comes under these namespaces. All right. Okay, so that is what is the DLL file, right? So in the references folder only you will be actually adding all your DLL file. You will be including all your DLL file inside this references folder so that you can use them in your project. Okay, so now if we can, if you say that if we can extract the date time so easily just by writing, just by making use of this internal class, the date time class, then similarly in Selenium also, when you will learn Selenium, when we will be learning Selenium, there is no rocket science, there is only the existing APIs that you need to learn. Okay, it's only the existing APIs and the features of the API that you need to learn for Selenium. You will not learn, you don't have to learn all these classes, all these features of the Selenium. Rather, we'll be actually discussing the important ones only that are mostly used in the frameworks, that are most used in the framework. That only we'll be actually discussing. We'll not be discussing, and there is no need to learn all these concepts, all these classes also with Selenium. Okay, so I'll tell you what all is important and what all we will be actually covering up in our course. Okay, so that is what it is. So now coming towards the OOPS concept. So we have like the concepts of the OOPS that we need to discuss, right? Now before actually, now if we start with the OOPS, everything starts, like as we all know that everything starts with the object. So now what is an object, what happens in memory, what is a class, how do you use them in Selenium. So before actually moving towards all these questions, before actually discussing all these questions, I'll just tell you, like, we need to download the DLL for the Selenium as well, right? Since like our main motive is the Selenium, we are learning Selenium, right? So for working with the Selenium, we have to install the DLL for the Selenium as well. Selenium DLL is not inbuilt in a Visual Studio, in any Visual Studio project. You have to install the Selenium DLLs in your project if you want to work with the Selenium. Right? And then one more thing, Selenium is not installed, it is configured. It is configured in your project. It's not installed. You cannot install. You cannot Google Selenium and then install Selenium. It is configured in a Visual Studio project. Okay, and then you just need to include the reference to it in your references folder. So how do you install Selenium? That is, how do you configure Selenium in your project? That is, there are like two ways how you can do with that. For this, like if you go to the official website of Selenium, you go to this download tab, right? And then we have to install the Selenium DLLs for the C#. So you just go to this and then you have this download link. So when you click on this download link, all the Selenium classes, the DLLs which are actually required by us in order to work with Selenium, it will get downloaded. Okay, so you can just download the Selenium DLLs from here, and then okay, so it has been downloaded. Okay, I'll just extract first. All right, so yes, so here it is, right? And then according to the framework of your .NET, you can just go to that folder, right? So since our framework is the framework version is 4.0, right? 4.0. So we'll just go with this folder, and then with this Selenium, we actually come up with all these DLLs that we actually need to add in our project. Okay, so these are all the DLLs that you need to add. So how do you add it? And then as I told you that in the references folder only we'll be actually adding all the DLL files, right? So what I do is that I'll just right click on the references folder, and then you need to add the reference of the Selenium DLLs in your code, right? So you just go to this add reference option, and out here we have to browse to our location where you have saved your Selenium DLLs. right? So you just browse to your location. Under the downloads, I have selenium.net, and these are all the DLLs that you just add them. Okay, so you see that all the 4 DLLs, the WebDriver, WebDriver.support, ThoughtWorks.selenium, and Selenium.WebDriver backed Selenium. So these are the 4 DLLs that actually come up when you download the Selenium DLLs from the official website of Selenium. Okay, that you need to just add in your references folder. And then there are 2 ways how you configure the Selenium in your project. That is, one is this way that we have just discussed right now. That is from the official website. You can just download it, and then you can just browse to your location and include it in the references folder, right? Or else we have one more way, that is, right click on the references folder and we go to manage NuGet packages. So you can actually download, you can include the Selenium DLLs, all the DLLs for the extent reports, for the endpoint API, and many more that we will be for the end unit also. So many more DLLs that we will be as we will proceed with the course, many more DLLs we will be making use of. So all the DLLs you can include from the NuGet packages as well, right? And then out here you just search for your DLL, and all the DLLs related with that will be listed, and you can install them. Okay, Selenium WebDriver, the WebDriver.Chrome driver, support classes, IE driver, WebDriver backed Selenium. So all the DLLs that we just included right now, all those DLLs actually come with this NuGet packages also. So from either of the 2 ways, you can just download it, your wish. Okay, so since I have it already downloaded, I have already included in my project, I have not included from the NuGet packages. Okay, so now yes, there right in the DLL which you added in, I included 4 DLLs. So these are the basic DLLs that will be required in order to work with the Selenium. And then when we saw in the NuGet packages, we have many more DLLs. But basically we will be actually requiring these 4 DLLs only. No, we don't actually need all these DLLs. These are there with the WebDriver, these all DLLs come. But we don't actually need them. We only need these 4 DLLs only. Because of which on the official website only you can just see that these are only the 4 DLLs. Which DLLs? I told you the rest DLLs are not actually required. Selenium.WebDriver.equip.ChromeDriver.WebDriver. These are not at all required in any of your framework. In any of your Selenium projects, these are not at all required. Only these will be required. The support class will be required, and the WebDriver DLL basically. And then you will notice that basically two DLLs will be only required by us. All right. These are not actually required, and then you can see that there are many DLLs which comes with the WebDriver. Many DLLs which comes. No, it's not required. It's not at all required. Okay. Yes. Okay, so now as we have included the Selenium DLLs inside our code, so now you can give any Selenium command over here, and then it will be perfectly working fine. Say suppose if you want to open the Chrome browser, right? Then you simply say new Chrome driver. Okay, and then since for this Chrome driver we have to include the namespace to it at the top out here. So how do you include the namespace? That is, you just press Ctrl plus dot, and then all the namespaces related to it will be listed up. All the solutions related to it will be listed up in the drop down. Okay, so this Chrome driver, this class, it comes under openqa.selenium.chrome. Okay, so we'll just include the reference to it. I'll just press enter, and this class, this namespace will get added up at the top. Okay, so now the error has gone also. Alright, okay, so now if you want to open the Chrome browser, say like I just wrote new Chrome driver, and then in order to open the Chrome browser, you have to give the path to the exe file of the Chrome in order to open the Chrome browser. It's like it's necessary to open the Chrome browser with Selenium. Okay, so I'll just include the path to the exe file. I'll just tell you, like I have it over here. Oh wait, I'll just tell you. Okay. Okay, and then it is the Selenium. Yes, Chrome driver, it comes under Selenium DLL. That under the Selenium DLL, we have this Chrome driver class. So it's there under Selenium only. It's not in C#. This Chrome driver is not in C#. It's there in Selenium. Now where can we see all the, which classes? The Selenium classes? Actually, like what all classes you actually need them in your project, you just yes, okay, so what all classes you actually need them in your Selenium, like in your framework, you can just see like C#, any programming language. If you work with any programming language, the basic classes, like you can just or else we have this Selenium documentation. All right, we have this Selenium documentation, then you can just have a look at it. So these are all the classes which actually come up with Selenium. Okay, this is the documentation of Selenium. You can just go through this documentation and then you'll come to know what all classes are there in Selenium. Okay, so as you can see that under openqa.selenium.chrome, we have this Chrome driver class. And similarly, we have many more classes which comes under Selenium. Many more. There are many more. Okay, so you just go through this documentation and you'll come to know what all are there. Okay, right, and then okay, so I was trying to open the Chrome browser, and then like instead of like you in the path, you obviously have to give the double slashes, right? But rather than like giving the double slashes, you can put the @ symbol as well in the front, and then it will accept double slashes in your path. Okay, right. So in order to open the Chrome browser, you have to give the path to the Chrome driver.exe file inside the constructor of the Chrome driver class, and then it will open your Chrome browser. Okay, right. So now I'll just save the changes, and then now if I run my code, I'll just click on this start button. So first of all, it just prints the two output, console.writeLine statement, and then it's trying to open the Chrome browser, and then you see that it opens the Chrome browser. So it now opens a blank Chrome browser only, since we haven't navigated to any URL on this Chrome browser. A blank Chrome browser will be opened before you, as you can see out here. Okay, so this is how like we work with the Selenium. So it's just like yeah, I just told you, Padma, that instead of like whenever you are giving the path in your code, you always put double slashes. That is, we have to put double slashes in our path in order like whenever we are giving the path of any file in our code. So instead of giving the double slash, there is one more way, that is you can put @ symbol as well in the front. Okay, so that will automatically accept double slashes in your path. Okay, so that is one way. Okay, right, so this is how like you open the Chrome browser in Selenium. So this is just the introduction to Selenium that we have just discussed right now, and there are many more things in Selenium which we will be actually covering up in our course. So this course will be taking up all those classes. Alright, so this was just the introduction to Selenium. That is how you open the Chrome browser. So everything, as you can see, that it's inbuilt. This Chrome driver is inbuilt. It's there in Selenium. You just included the Selenium DLL and then you are making use of the Chrome driver class, right? So everything is inbuilt in Selenium. You just need to include the DLLs for any of your required file, and then you can work with your code easily. Okay, so this is what it is. And then, okay, so 5 more minutes I'll take. The last topic, that is one more basic concept, one more most important one also, you can say that. Now when you compile any C# program, you will be creating an assembly. Now what is an assembly? Assembly is a file that contains the compiled code. Now there are two kinds of assemblies. One is the executable assembly, which have the exe file extension. Okay, so all the programs are compiled as executables only. Those are the assemblies that you can execute. For example, say right now we have created a console application project, right? So now if I go to the path, I'll just open this in my file explorer, right? So now if you go to this debug folder, so here you see that the exe file is generated of your project day1.exe. So this is one kind of an assembly which is generated when you create a project .exe, which has the exe.exe as the file extension. That means these are the programs which are compiled as the executables. You can actually execute them. Say suppose I'll just close my Visual Studio. I'll save the changes to it. Okay, so now if I double click on this day1.exe file, so your code will be executed. Okay, so you see that you have we have two output in the console output window and the opening of the Chrome browser. So that's all we have done in our day one project, right? So .exe, so there is one assembly .exe, which means those are the assemblies that you can execute, right? So this is one thing. And then there are also library assemblies which have the DLL extension, referred to as the class library, because they contain classes that you can actually use in your program. Okay, and as you will learn shortly, that namespaces also play a very big role, very important role in C# as well. And then how do you use the drivers and everything, we will just come to know. You'll just come to know, right? Say I'll just show you with the class library project also. So I'll open my Visual Studio, and then now if I create a new project and I'll add a class library project, right? Okay, so this is your class library project. So now you see that in a class library project, we have 3 folders coming up. That is, you don't have app.config file in your class library project. Okay, and then the properties folder is the same. We have the references folder, which will contain the DLLs, all your DLLs, and then you have one class file, class1.cs file, which does not contain the main method inside it. So now if you don't have any main method in your code, then how will you execute your code? So that comes with this comes up with the difference, the most important difference with the class library and the console application is exe files, that is the console application projects, the applications can be executed. But if you have created a class library project, then you cannot execute a class library project. Since now why? It is because a console application project, it contains the main method, whereas the class library project does not contain a main method inside it. Okay, right? So now if I go to the path of this my project, I'll go to this bin debug. Okay, since right now we haven't done anything inside our code, so nothing is there. I'll just build the solution once. Okay, bin debug, right? So now you see that Okay, so now with the class library project, you, like I told you, there is another assembly which has a DLL as the file extension, that is being referred to as the class library project. Alright, so DLL file, if you double click this DLL file, nothing gets executed. Nothing gets executed. Now why? It is because it does not contain any main method. DLL files are not the executable files. As I told you, console application you can execute them, but the DLL files you cannot execute them. So this is the major difference between a console application and a class library project. Alright. Okay, so yes, Padma. So when can we use the class library? Okay, so alright, I'll tell you that also, like in a class library project. And then one more thing, yes, class library project is a collection of projects. That is, in a single class library project, you can add multiple projects. Say suppose we have this class library project with us, and then now inside my class library project I want to add one console application. Right, I want to add one console application. So you just add a new project and then say I want to add a console application inside my class library project. So you see that console application, it gets added up in your class library project. So class library project, you can say it is a collection of projects. You can create as many projects as you want in a single class library project. But in a console application, you cannot do that. Single console application project denotes one single project only. But in a class library project, no, we cannot execute the class library project. Actually, when we will be making our frameworks, I'll be adding the class library project only. Since then we will be adding the end unit project also, and then we'll be adding the console application project also, right? So yes, with the console application only we'll be actually executing our code. Yes. Okay, right, so this is what is a class library project. Fine. And then we have discussed the first day topics, that is how we download the Selenium DLLs and how do we configure them as well inside our Visual Studio project, that we have just discussed, right? And then we have also discussed a sample program also. Okay, so this is what it is.